What if the person you trusted most was never real? In a chilling twist of betrayal, 20-year-old Renae Marsden fell in love with a man who never existed, a man created by her own best friend. But this wasn't just a lie. It was a deadly deception that ended in tragedy. What drove a best friend to orchestrate an illusion so deep it destroyed a life? This is not just a story of love and lies. It's a story of manipulation, obsession, and the terrifying consequences of digital betrayal. Renae Marsden was a bright, beautiful, and deeply trusting 20-year-old girl living in Sydney, Australia. She had dreams of becoming a lawyer, a supportive family, and a lifelong best friend named Camila. But none of that would protect her from what was coming. In 2011, Renae's life took a sharp turn when she met someone online. His name was Braden Spiteri. At least, that's what she believed. Tall, dark-haired, and troubled yet charming, Braden had a tragic backstory. He said he was in prison for manslaughter after a bar fight spiraled out of control. It was a dark past, but he claimed to be trying to turn his life around. Renae was captivated. It wasn't love at first sight. It was deeper than that. Over months of online conversations, texts, and phone calls, Renae began falling hard for Braden. He told her she was special, that she gave him hope, and he promised her a future. They would have kids, move in together once he was released, start fresh. Their relationship became Renae's emotional anchor. She spoke about him constantly, wrote letters, waited eagerly for every message, every call. Though she had never seen him in person, he had become the most important person in her life. Her family noticed the change. Renae was infatuated, obsessed even, but she dismissed concerns, brushing them off as people not understanding how real love could be, even if it was through a screen. But the truth was, Braden didn't exist. Not in the way Renae thought. Behind every message, every carefully written letter, every emotionally charged phone call, was Camila, her best friend. Camila had created Braden from scratch. The name, the backstory, even the fake relatives and prison guards. She used burner phones, fake Facebook profiles, even voice distortion apps to play both sides of the conversation. Whenever Renae needed comfort, Braden was there. When Renae doubted him, he would send her gifts, letters. Sometimes he'd disappear for days, then come back with dramatic explanations, a prison fight, time in solitary confinement. Each moment was orchestrated, each response designed to pull Renae deeper into the illusion. What makes this even more disturbing is that Renae confided in Camila about everything. Every fight with Braden, every intimate thought, every doubt. Camila listened, nodded, offered advice, all while playing both roles. She knew exactly what to say because she had already seen the messages from the other side. It was the ultimate control. Renae was trapped in an emotional maze, and Camila held the map. But why? Why would someone go to such lengths to deceive their closest friend? Some speculate Camila was obsessed, not with Braden, but with Renae. Whether it was jealousy, possessiveness, or a twisted desire to be at the center of Renae's world. One thing is clear, this wasn't a prank. It was emotional manipulation taken to an extreme, sustained over nearly 2 years. There were moments Renae grew suspicious. She tried to meet Braden. She even visited the prison she thought he was in, only to be told he wasn't there. When she confronted Camila about it, she was told it was a mistaken location or a cover-up. Camila always had a plausible explanation, but the inconsistencies started to build. Renae's emotional health began to unravel. The highs of romantic promises were followed by crushing lows of doubt and betrayal. Still, she clung to the hope that Braden was real. Because if he wasn't, it meant her entire reality was a lie. The emotional toll this took on Renae was devastating. She began isolating herself, withdrawing from friends, losing interest in things she once loved. Her family noticed, but she kept most of the turmoil hidden. The final blow came in August 2013. After yet another dramatic breakup with Braden. He told her, through Camila, that he didn't love her anymore, that it was over. After nearly 2 years of being emotionally tethered to someone who didn't exist, Renae was shattered. Hours later, she left a final message to her mother, a goodbye. Then she drove to the Gap, a notorious cliffside in Sydney known for suicides. And she jumped. Her body was never recovered, but her phone was. And inside it lay the key to unraveling the cruel deception. Hundreds of messages, dozens of voice recordings, and a single truth that shattered the Marsden family. Braden Spiteri was never real. Camila, The girl who had been by Renee's side since childhood had created him. Police investigations confirmed the lie, but legally, Camila hadn't committed a crime. At the time, catfishing, even one that ends in suicide, wasn't considered criminal in Australia. Renae was dead, and Camila walked free. But the story doesn't end there. It ignited a national conversation about emotional abuse in the digital age and how far manipulation can go before it crosses into criminal territory. What Renae believed was love was nothing more than a performance, orchestrated by someone she trusted more than anyone else. A performance that ended in tragedy. Camila Della Lana wasn't just Renae Marsden's best friend. She was like family. They had grown up together, shared secrets, went on holidays with each other's families, and supported one another through every major life milestone. From the outside, they were inseparable. But behind Camila's warm smile and loyal presence, something deeply twisted was brewing. An obsession so consuming it blurred the line between friendship and psychological control. Camila didn't just watch Renae fall in love with Braden Spiteri, she made her fall. Because Braden was her invention. To maintain this illusion for nearly 2 years, Camila operated a web of deceit that required extreme planning and constant emotional manipulation. She wasn't simply sending occasional texts pretending to be a guy. She was living a double life. She used fake SIM cards, anonymous email accounts, and burner phones. She created entire Facebook pages for Braden and his so-called family, building a believable digital identity from scratch. Camila would call Renae pretending to be Braden, distorting her voice so she wouldn't be recognized. She even posed as Braden's prison guard or mother at times, sending supportive messages to Renae to convince her that the relationship was real. The deception was intricate, layered, and disturbingly calculated. But what drove her to do it? At first glance, it might seem like a cruel joke or a misguided attempt to protect Renae from other relationships. But the evidence suggests something much darker. Camila's obsession with Renae was rooted in control and emotional dependency. She wanted to be at the center of Renae's world, to own her emotions, her trust, her future. The creation of Braden allowed Camila to manipulate Renae's reality, to isolate her, and to become the one person who could comfort her when Braden hurt her. It was a closed loop, pain and relief delivered by the same person under different names. Whenever Renae expressed doubts about Braden's story, Camila swooped in as the supportive friend, feeding her new explanations, fake evidence, or even encouraging her to be patient and understanding. Camila was both the arsonist and the firefighter, setting emotional fires and then rescuing Renae from the flames. Over time, Renae grew more emotionally dependent, and that dependency fed Camila's power. It wasn't about love, it was about dominance. Renae would tell Camila intimate details about her relationship with Braden, including her most vulnerable fears, hopes, and plans. And Camila would use that information to craft responses from Braden that perfectly matched what Renae wanted to hear or needed to hear at any given moment. This wasn't improvisation. It was psychological warfare. Camila knew exactly when to say, "I love you," through Braden, and when to create tension or emotional distance to trigger panic and insecurity. Renae was unknowingly trapped in a cycle of emotional abuse orchestrated by the very person she trusted most. It didn't stop at emotional manipulation. Camila wove lies so deep they bled into reality. She claimed that Braden had been transferred to different prisons to explain why Renae couldn't find him. She warned Renae against showing up unexpectedly, insisting that it could get Braden in trouble or cut off their communication. She even told her not to discuss Braden with certain people, all subtle ways of isolating Renae from other sources of truth. Camila's control over the situation was absolute, and the longer the deception continued, the more emotionally dependent Renae became. The emotional damage was severe. Renae's moods were dictated by Braden's responses. When he was loving, she glowed. When he was cold or dismissive, she broke down. Camila watched it all unfold, sometimes comforting her, other times fueling the fire. There were days Renae would be completely devastated by a message from Braden, only to be consoled by Camila mere hours later, unaware she was talking to the same person the entire time. Camila's ability to switch roles so seamlessly showed a disturbing level of emotional detachment and psychological manipulation. It's easy to wonder why Renae never figured it out completely. The answer lies in trust. She trusted Camila with her life. The idea that her best friend would betray her in such an elaborate way was unthinkable. It simply didn't register as a possibility. Camila wasn't a stranger on the internet. She was someone who had shared meals with Renee's family, who had slept in her home, celebrated birthdays, and comforted her during real heartbreaks. That level of trust, when weaponized, is nearly impossible to defend against. Even when doubts surfaced, and they did, Camila was always there to smooth things over. She was emotionally intelligent, persuasive, and quick to play the victim if confronted. When Renae started to push for more real-world interaction with Braden, Camila introduced more drama. Braden was depressed. He didn't want to be seen. He had secrets, anything to delay the inevitable truth. But the weight of all the lies began to wear on Renae, especially as her efforts to verify Braden's identity continued to hit dead ends. By the final months of the deception, Renae was emotionally unraveling. She was experiencing intense mood swings, deep anxiety, and growing disillusionment. She wanted answers. She wanted clarity. But what she got instead was rejection. Through Braden, Camila delivered the final emotional blow. He no longer loved her. He didn't want to be with her. It was over. After nearly 2 years of emotional torture and false hope, Renae was left with nothing but emptiness. And Camila, the puppet master, let the strings go, leaving Renae to fall, with no one left to catch her. August 5, 2013, was the day everything came crashing down. Renae Marsden had spent the last 2 years tangled in a web of lies, manipulated, deceived, and emotionally suffocated by someone she believed to be her soulmate. But that day, everything changed. The relationship she had clung to, the emotional anchor that had both supported and broken her, came to a devastating end. Braden, the man she had waited for, written letters to, and dreamed of marrying, told her he no longer loved her, that it was over. The words hit her like a freight train. After everything she had endured, the promises, the dreams, the long nights spent hoping, it was all gone in a single message. That final exchange shattered her. Her entire reality collapsed. And the worst part? Renae still didn't know the truth, that Braden had never existed at all, that every moment of hope, every emotional high and low, every word she had treasured had been fabricated by her best friend. Camila hadn't just created a lie. She had created a world, one where Renae was the only one who didn't know the script. And now, that world had ended in the most painful way possible. Later that same day, Renae wrote a farewell message to her mother. It wasn't long or overly dramatic. It was quiet, heavy with grief, but with no indication of the depth of her despair. She drove to a place called The Gap, a rocky cliffside in Sydney known for its tragic reputation. Over the years, many had chosen it as their final destination. And now, Renae stood at the edge, emotionally wrecked, confused, and completely alone in her pain. She made her decision, and she jumped. Emergency services recovered her car, and her phone was left behind. But her body was never found. The ocean swallowed her up, and with her, the final cries of a girl who had been emotionally murdered long before she fell. In the hours and days that followed, her family was frantic, searching, hoping, praying for a miracle. They couldn't understand what had pushed their daughter to that point. She had seemed troubled, yes, but suicidal? It didn't make sense. That is, until they began digging into her messages. Renae's phone became the starting point of a painful unraveling. Her parents found hundreds of texts from Braden, deeply emotional, sometimes dark, often confusing. They read the promises, the breakups, the declarations of love, followed by cold dismissals. It was like reading the diary of someone being emotionally tortured. But something didn't add up. They couldn't find a single photo of him, not one video call, no verified identity, no real-world connection beyond the digital realm. And then they noticed something else, the way Camila's name kept appearing, as a friend, as a confidant, and, strangely, sometimes even speaking on behalf of Braden. As suspicion grew, they handed everything over to police. What followed was a chilling investigation that confirmed the family's worst fears. Braden Spiteri didn't exist. There was no record of him, no birth certificate, no prison record, no social footprint beyond the one crafted online. It didn't take long for digital forensic experts to trace the messages and calls back to Camila. Phone numbers, IP addresses, overlapping timelines. All the evidence pointed to one horrifying truth. The girl Renae had trusted most had engineered the entire relationship. The police confronted Camila. She didn't deny the lie, not entirely, but she showed little remorse. She claimed it was just a story that got out of hand, that she never meant for Renae to die, that it was a mistake. But those closest to Renae didn't see it as a mistake. They saw it for what it was: calculated emotional abuse, meticulously maintained, and ultimately fatal. Camila had controlled every aspect of Renae's emotional life, created hope only to rip it away, and left her in a place so dark that death felt like the only escape. Yet despite the damning evidence, no criminal charges were filed. At the time, there were no specific laws in Australia that classified catfishing, even one that resulted in suicide, as a crime. Emotional abuse, manipulation, and deception of this kind didn't fall neatly into legal definitions. Camila walked free. She was never held accountable in a courtroom for what she had done. The Marsden family was left devastated, grieving not only the loss of their daughter, but the horrifying realization that her death could go unpunished. In the aftermath, Renae's mother pushed for legal reform. She spoke publicly about her daughter's case, advocating for stronger laws around digital abuse and emotional coercion. She called for legislation that would recognize the severity of catfishing and the real harm it causes. Her voice became a rallying cry for change, echoing the pain of parents who never want to see another child fall victim to such manipulation. Renae's story isn't just about a fake relationship. It's about the dangers of unchecked emotional control, the ease with which trust can be weaponized, and the terrifying realization that not all crimes leave bruises or blood behind. Some are invisible. Some live in messages, in whispers, in the silent spaces between texts. And sometimes, the worst kind of violence is the kind you never see until it's too late.